Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it, and frankly as well. 3,000
but it's the
horsepower.
next iteration of an existing system.
But it's a design. It's not manufacturing anything.
I think there should be, there are restrictions. You have to be licensed to carry a weapon.
Addiction, and I think that if we took a more compassionate approach, we might find more of a solution.
Radical swing of the pendulum. Now we're, it's more liberal, more progressive, more.
It's time for us to honor those folks who, send comments to it.
And welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it, and frankly as well. 'Tis the season to be jolly, Paul.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to
Is
you,
it,
Joe.
huh?
Yes. Hey,
Great picture.
by the way,
ahead.
I'm getting more and more excited about this every day. I think for anybody who hasn't watched the show, didn't watch it last week, Joe and I are going to the inauguration. We're looking forward to it. We're going to have a blast down there, and we'll be bringing back all the news from Inauguration Day.
Yeah, and by the way, I love the fact that you booked this into Annapolis, because I always want to go to the Naval Academy, which is only a half an hour away. It's what, 30 miles?
About
About 30 miles. So even with traffic, we'll be there, without any problem. So, yeah, we'll be up
Well, that
there.
was so we could save, so we didn't have to pay $1,000 a night for a hotel room.
I wouldn't go to $1,000 a night if they put a gun to my head and they were going to put acid in my eyes,
Yeah.
I can't, it's just couldn't do it. Although I could buy scratch tickets. Goes to
I don't
show.
think the scratch tickets down in Washington are nearly as good as the ones in Massachusetts.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's get down to brass tacks, okay.
So, folks, we're actually taping a day before the show plays out. Two things are happening today, so we'll let them know. This is Tuesday when we're taping.
Yep.
This evening, the mayor of the city of Lynn has been going to be deposed, so to speak, by the Lynn City Council, Paul.
Right.
A lot
Yes,
of questions and answers they want, right?
Yep.
And they have to write the questions, is that true?
I don't know.
Do they have to write? Well, I read it somewhere. I may be wrong.
Well, didn't you change the rules back when you were on the city council because you couldn't hear? They had
Exactly.
to
How'd you
write.
know?
You told me that.
I did.
So
And
I.
they all whispered, by the way.
Yeah, because they didn't want you to hear.
No, they want me to hear it. Well, they keep-
But so what are you saying that rule is still in effect, or is that
Maybe,
something?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it is in effect. Dave, our producer, who knows all.
Yep.
Dave Riley, by the way, I want you to understand that he's
Yeah.
the...
Award-winning Dave Riley.
Yeah.
Yes.
So any case, what's happening is that they want to know, where's the money, honey? Maybe, I hope that's not sexist what I just said, is it?
No,
So Mayor
it
Judy-
rhymes.
It does. So Mayor Judy's going to go before the city council, which is hilarious because they punted the ball all over the place, didn't they?
Right. Yeah, they're back and forth on a lot of different issues. They're not, taxes are going up. For you folks at home, they're going up. Don't
Guaranteed.
Yeah, no ands, ifs, or buts about it. And you know how it is with politicians and raising taxes. They're going to be hiding under the table trying to
Well, that's the
pretend
New
it's
Year's
not them.
resolution.
Yeah.
That's their New Year's resolution.
Right.
Raise taxes, right?
No. Their New Year's resolution is do whatever you can to help the taxpayer. And if you have to raise taxes, that's somebody else's.
That helps the taxpayer by raising taxes.
Yeah, and I'm just joking here, but I think, I think we have a serious council, we have a serious mayor, and they're going to try to sort it out. There's no question about it.
But the way they're going to raise taxes is kind of a shell game. Now, I tried to explain it to the folks out there a couple of weeks ago when I said, they haven't got the courage to put an override of 2.5 on the ballot because they know that'll go down in flames, right? So everybody's throwing the buck back and forth. What they're going to do, as we pointed out, is they're going to raise the value of the city. So they're going to say, your house that was $250 last year is now $300,000.
Right.
So you're going to pay more taxes because your house is worth more.
Right.
Would you agree?
Yeah, and I know that we talked about this a few weeks back, and I was, firmly in that camp. If there's a 20% increase in the property values, in theory, they could raise taxes 28%. But I actually talked with Peter Karen yesterday about it because I was really, I wanted to confirm it. And Peter Karen, he's the city assessor as well as the CFO. So if anybody knows, it's Peter. And he pointed out to me that there are caps in there in addition to the 2.5 override, which prevents the city from really going up the whole 28%.
That's right.
That's not to say that the taxes aren't going up, it's just to say that they don't have an unlimited ability to raise it.
That's true.
To stay
but
within the 2.5.
they can incrementally do it.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
So that's what they'll do.
And another thing that he told me was that the city has kind of figured out this fiscal year, so they're okay with this year. It's 2018 is when they're going to really have some serious problems. So all this conversation is about anticipating what's going to happen, because if they can't balance their budget, in the past they used to be able to balance their budget with what's called free cash. It's at the end of it's basically this a surplus or a rainy day fund that gets created because there's more revenue that looking back, you have more revenue than your expenses, so you get this free cash position, which can use to offset some of your costs that you didn't anticipate. They've been living on that for years. I mean, it's worked out for them every year, but that is pretty much gone now. So they're looking at things now. They're looking at the sales tax going from 6.25% to 7.5%, which it's a local option.
Wait a minute, you're talking about the state level?
Well, the state sales tax is 7.5%.
They want it's right now at 6.25.
In Lynn. The state tax rate is 6.25, but there's a local option that
Meaning?
So any city or town can opt in for this program, and the sales tax in that locality would be at 7.5%, and the 1.25% in addition would actually be direct sales to the city.
That's going to be fabulous for retailers in the city of Lynn.
But wait a minute, let me just say something. So every community that borders Lynn currently has the 7.5, what I'm told, and if they do this, they can raise about $700,000, and that means that when you go out to a restaurant, you spend $100, it's going to cost you an extra 75 cents. And while I know that's, you can't really look at it that way,
it's not 75
impact
cents, $7.50.
No.
Really?
No, the increase would be 75 cents.
Paul, I want to go to another thing that's happening today. This is what's that one wonderful word that begins with S when you're going from
Segue?
I like that word.
Yeah.
Say it again.
You want to segue into something?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
As we speak, they're breaking ground on Washington Street in what they call the Gateway Project, right?
The Gateway Project, yep. You see a
now-
nice picture of it in yesterday's paper.
That's very good. Which is an artist's rendition. It never
Yes.
turns out that way. And by the way, it's 5 stories high. It's $31 million project.
Yep.
It's wood framed. Okay. Now here's the problem. It's subsidized, Paul. They're offering $100,000 per unit. There are 71 units going in there. That's $710,000. Nobody's screaming about that. But God forbid that President Trump-elect gave the boys at Carrier about the same amount, $700,000 credit, tax write-off, to keep 1,000 jobs. Now, isn't there something wrong with Democrats who scream and yell at that, which is a good thing, and all of a sudden it's okay to give $1,000 per unit on a non-productive situation?
The Democrats, especially at the federal level, are, I have to say it, they're just hypocrites. They don't care what they said yesterday. If it fits their narrative today, they're going to say it.
Well, the Russians did it.
Right. Yeah. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When Harry Reid eliminated the filibuster, and the Republicans started screaming, they said, too bad, too bad, too bad. And now they're screaming because that rule is going to hurt them now.
Which they did.
Yeah.
And so they want to know why they're no longer in perpetuity. Let me get back to this Washington Street thing.
Yeah, I actually have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
You were saying that so there's 100,000 units. What does that mean? So that they're going to basically be selling condos for $100,000? Is that what you said?
I don't know how they make it, but they were talking about, as I read it, that there are 1,000 units they plan on doing, of which we have 71, right?
Oh, okay.
So of those 1,000 units, they're up to, I should use the right framing, up to $100,000 subsidy per unit.
I see.
Whether it's rental or whether it's purchase, I don't know. But nevertheless, the
Subsidy
point
is
I'm
the
trying to
key
make
word,
is that for that little project on Washington Street in the city of Lynn, it could conceivably be $710,000 per year, right? 100,000 times 71 units.
which would be 7.1 million.
I stand corrected, Paul. You're the,
Yeah.
you're the.
I think I'm
Right. You're
yeah,
right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right. You're the accountant. My point being, that's right. I was thinking of a different figure. I was thinking of 10,000. It's actually 100,000. So that's $7.1 million worth of stuff. Of course, that goes into perpetuity.
Right.
Okay. So using the same formulation, what I'm saying to you is that works out to be about the same amount of money. If you use the 7.1 million over 10 years, it's 710,000
As
per
a
year.
carrier job.
Right, it's a carrier.
Right.
So that's the same formulation that they used in Indianapolis on carrier, and everybody's screaming and yelling about it, calling it.
Well, not
corporate-
everybody.
Yeah, well, you know, crony capitalism.
So two things on that. First of all, the Republican approach or the conservative approach of, doing something that will create or preserve jobs is different than, say, a Democrat or a liberal policy which is designed to subsidize a program. That it's putting the money in, using the money in a different way. In some respects, to gain the same thing, right? It's to support something that would otherwise not survive, right? So the Democrats and liberals are supporting, people who are under income, they can't afford the housing in this area. By the way, this is the most one of the most expensive areas of the country. So, it's pretty expensive to live around here. And in the city of Lynn, we have a high rate of poverty, a high rate of low income, that type of thing. So, the needs around here are important, although I wish we had kind of a carrier situation here too, in addition to that. So we provide some subsidies for those who can't afford it, but we also provide some subsidies to create some jobs. That would be really good. It'd be a nice balance, don't you think?
No kidding, but we're out of balance. And let me ask a few questions of you, because I don't know the answer, but it's troubling to me. It's called mixed income, whatever that means, okay? On the 71 units.
So that means that some people will be paying market rate and others will be paying a subsidy.
Not true. I'll get to that in a
all right.
second. Now, first of all, they paid $600,000 for this lot. I don't know where it is. It's across from.
It's where the old Blue Note used to be. And then
Oh,
the,
really?
and then the
Down,
parking lot
down.
behind.
I got you down by Amity and Sagamore, my old neighborhood. All right.
Yep.
So they paid
Across the street from
$600,000.
across the street from Fran's place.
Yeah.
And the North Shore Community College.
Okay. So that's $600,000 for that. Now here's the deal that gets me. It's supposed to be a $31 million project. My question to you is this: do they paying taxes, real estate taxes on $31 million, or is this a nonprofit? Is this under the Lynn Housing Authority, in which they don't pay taxes, or what? Does the Lynn Housing Authority pay taxes on its units?
They do not, I don't believe.
They do not. So this is $31 million, no taxes,
I don't know if it's
no revenue producing.
I don't know if that's the case or not.
Well, we got to find that out, because it's under the management of Al Hand. What is Al Hand?
Lynn Housing and Neighborhood Development.
Okay, so that's a nonprofit, no?
I think so.
It's probably don't pay any taxes. Now, it's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units.
Is that, I don't know.
Well, that's what it says.
I didn't read
So
the
if you
story.
have 2 and 3 bedrooms, that automatically tells you're going to have kids.
Right.
We're going to be going to Lynn school system, which is already under siege at $7.5 million shortfall.
Well, the question would be, is this going to attract new people to the city, or is it going to be to support existing needs that already in the city? Because if they're already here, I mean, they're already going to school, right?
That's true. But what do you think is going to happen?
I hope that Lynn residents would get a preference.
We hope. Workforce housing. That's a quote. That's how they define it. Workforce housing. I have no idea what it means. It means this, I think. It means that if you don't qualify for affordable housing, but can't afford mixed rate dwelling or market rate dwelling, you can go there. That means what?
So maybe there's a phase in / out from, getting a subsidy.
You can't afford to pay for a house, and at the same token,
Right.
you can't rent.
Right. Well, and I don't know if this is it or not, but it sounds to me like the dilemma that people who are in some type of entitlement program that are being supported by the state or whatever, let's say that they have Mass Health, they have child care, they have food stamps because they're not working.
The point is,
but if they have all of these types of supports, and then they get an opportunity to go to work, as soon as they go to work, those supports dry up, so they're disincented to actually go to work. So I'm wondering if what this is some type of way of phasing out of one and into the other.
Should we not have
which
that
is really
information? Now, here's the other thing. The state has chucked in $5 million underneath this to help the project along.
Yeah.
Who's the beneficiary of all this? And you know who's holding the note? The FFL-CIO is financing it. Isn't that something? The union?
It's probably it's an investment from their pension fund.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
I
right.
do that a lot.
Yeah, so that means it's going to be subsidized, so they get guaranteed rents no matter what, right? That's a heck of a ball game,
Right.
isn't it?
It also keeps the AFL-CIO firmly invested in subsidies, too.
Well, I've been saying this for now a month. Think big, and what we need to do is change the blend, the social-economic blend in the city somewhat, out of equity. Because otherwise, we're not going to be able to do in 2018 what we have to do.
Right. So if you take 71 units, and they're not 100% subsidized, right?
No, they are. 71 mixed income. And the definition is workforce housing.
So I interpret mixed income to say that there are people low, moderate, and
so we're
so
not,
forth.
but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the people who go here don't qualify for affordable housing. Got that? Don't qualify.
Right.
And secondly, can't afford market rate dwelling, meaning rentals.
So they're kind of
So
betwixt and between.
in effect, the Lynn Housing Authority
Will be subsidizing all of it.
exactly.
Right. But
I may be wrong.
But the subsidies won't be as significant as
$100,000
I don't have any- I don't
up to
have any-
$100,000 per unit.
I get it. I get
Okay,
it.
so this is
So that's
precisely.
71 units at a time when they're about to break ground also on the Linway to put in 350 units. So there's a balance in favor of market rate. If when you look at them
Not really,
net,
because you got 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, and once you have more than one bedroom, you're inviting children. And I like children, don't get me wrong, but that's going to impact our school system. And so we have to take a look.
if they come from outside the city,
Yes, Paul?
Yep.
But one of the things that we have to think about is we have to think about having a little different blend. We need people who are producing in order to take care of those who are not producing.
that's like the 350 units on the Beacon
Hopefully.
site. Yes.
And on top of it,
100% market rate.
yeah, except for one thing that we discussed, and that was, are they be paying a commercial tax rate or a residential?
I haven't figured that out yet.
Neither have I. But
I
that's
think it's
important.
residential.
And also, whether this project on Washington Street is paying any real estate tax whatsoever,
Right.
on top of everything else.
Right.
So that's basically that part. So in any case, Judy is going to go before the city council this evening to answer all types of questions, and I'm sure she's going to do the best she can.
Right.
But if there's no gold at the end of the pot of the rainbow, what are you going to do?
Right. Well, a couple things. I mean, and I'm not a proponent of raising taxes, so I'll make that clear.
But they're going to be raised.
They're certainly going to raise the property taxes. That's, I think, a given.
That's their
We've
tax
established
raise.
that.
Yeah.
If they also raise or take advantage of the local option on the sales tax, that's estimated to raise about $700,000 a year. And I'm guessing here, but if they put in those 2 marijuana dispensaries that they're talking about doing, that will probably generate around $700,000 a year for the city as well.
So you're talking about 1.5 million.
Yeah, 1.4. Yeah.
1.4, 1.5.
Plus whatever they do to raise the property taxes
Yeah,
to
but
kind of.
1.5 million in the scheme of things,
It's not much,
it's nickels and dimes.
right? No, but if you think about it, right?
The police have already got double that in their pay raises.
Well, and that's the real challenge that created this problem was all the raises for the unions.
What about Has anybody talked about maybe tightening the belt?
They already committed to they signed the contract with the union, so they got to do it. They got to pay for it.
Where is the logical place to look, Paul, to straighten the budget out? Seriously, where's the logical place to see we can save some bucks?
If I were in charge,
Yeah.
I'd go after a lot of the high-priced positions that are unnecessary. There's a lot.
That's
There's a
true.
lot of that going on.
But what city service is the costly one in which you can find
School department.
Exactly. Somebody has to sit down and reevaluate the school department both at the state and the federal level, right? And thankfully, we have somebody who's in the Department of Education now that's a proponent of charter schools that may help this problem out significantly,
Right.
and benefit the city of Lynn.
Yeah, and I couldn't really even explain how complicated it is because I just don't understand it. But from when I was on the city council and even to today, to hear them explain why they do certain things, this money has to be used for that, and if you're Title IX or Title I, and all these different rules that dictate how you do anything. The school department turns themselves, they use this expression that the Democrats are always getting a hernia trying to explain their position on things. In the same sense, the school department is always getting a hernia trying to comply with the rules that are promulgated by the state and the federal government on how they are to educate the kids.
You're talking about regulations, right?
Yeah.
So, if you have an administration that's going in now that is committed to getting rid of all these crazy regulations across the board in all sectors,
Yeah,
isn't that a good thing?
Getting rid of all these crazy regulations, generally, I hope
We're talking generally.
that moves in the right direction.
Right.
To me, it is recognizing what regulations are important and which ones are really to push an agenda as opposed to important. It's like the EPA. Trying to say that if you have a puddle forming in your backyard that you're a wetlands and that kind of those are kind of crazy things that basically take ownership away from people and that kind of stuff. And those to me are blatantly unnecessary.
It's often to be said that states are the laboratory for programming.
Sure.
right?
Yep.
And you could even go one step further and say actually it's local communities, right?
Even further. Yep.
So if you release local communities, cities and towns, to work their little formulations out, would that not be the right way to go? There's where you can find some room. I mean, we have created a permanent government at all levels, bureaucracy, that's unwieldy, Paul.
Right. So the best I can do is equate it to what I do at Greater Lynn Senior Services. Now, Greater Lynn Senior Services has two major contracts. One is with the Secretary of Elder Affairs, and then we have the MBTA contract. And the MBTA contract is a contract where we actually make money, and we can make a certain amount by contract and so forth, and we do. And what we do is we try to turn that money back into innovation and try to advance our mission and so forth, right? Elder Affairs, conversely, we get a certain amount of dollars, and we're told we must do it this way, that way, this way, this way, that way, this way. Regulations to the hilt. So. If all I have is the Elder Affairs relationship where everything is kind of micromanaged or done through regulation, there is no opportunity to innovate. The only reason we're able to innovate is because we have discretionary dollars that through our...
You can generate revenue.
Right. So, and I guess my point is, when you talk about the states and the communities being kind of the petri dish for the rest of the country type of thing, it doesn't work if there's this overwhelming prescription handed down by the state or the federal government, you know what I mean?
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So, but you're telling me that your agency can generate capital, and if it's good at it, it just plows it back in and cuts costs down and doesn't become dependent on subsidies.
We haven't done much in ways of cutting costs, but what we've done is we've been able to innovate, and we've been able to come up with ideas that we would not have been able to do.
So you're allocating your resources in a wise way.
And over time, we're hoping that will lead to a better approach to providing health care for people, which will improve health care, and lower costs.
which is the good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a noble task that you do.
Sure. Yep. I like to
And-
think so.
And if you're able to do that effectively and cost effectively, then you're going to be able to do better service, Paul.
But when the Department of Education at the state level and at the federal level is, forcing the school departments of all the communities in the state of Massachusetts to operate, get a hernia trying to operate they're never going to be able to innovate. They're going to spend all their time complying.
Paul, the President of the United States, who's about to leave office, worked avidly in the Ford Foundation, along with Bill Ayers of infamy, right?
Right.
Talk about December
On
7th. This
yeah.
guy was bombing the Pentagon and places like that. Those two got together and were developing educational policy over and above to umbrella into the local communities. That's what they worked for. That was their whole the genesis, and they work hand in hand. So the people that were appointed during the last administration to the Department of Education were way out in left field.
And they weren't teaching, trying to improve the methods of
Not
teaching
at all.
math and
They were there
English.
to indoctrinate.
Yes, they were trying to get people to believe their way of their political philosophy and which is essentially a socialist kind of approach and that kind of thing.
It's beyond socialist. It's almost dogmatic. Today, climate change is a religion. And it's heresy to even consider that maybe...
Right, and that guy from Oklahoma that
Oh, God,
Trump
they're
is
gonna
going
drive him crazy.
he's a heretic, right?
Oh, of course he is.
Yeah.
They're going to... He's going to pull a Joan of Arc. They're going to stick him on a stake and put a few timbers underneath him and light the match. That's what they do. They take no prisoners, these folks.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to know, think about the genesis of the Bolsheviks. I mean, they were vicious. Think about the French Revolution. They used the guillotine. They were chopping heads off, like candy bars.
You know why you probably told me this, but I
Right.
don't remember. Do you know why that they used the guillotine to chop people's heads off?
Oh, yeah, because it was humane.
It was humane, that's right. Because
There's only one problem with that. Folks, this is crazy. I don't know if it's true. It's the same with the samurai warriors. If you hold the head up and you cut real fast, there's still enough oxygen that you see yourself separated from your body. That's your last thought before you expire. Isn't that a horrible thought? Your head's rolling down, just been separated from the body. I mean, you know what the Bolsheviks did?
What'd they
This
do?
is Stalin and Lenin. They took the Tsar and the Tsarina and the whole royal family, right? And they killed them. Little kids had the whole shooting gallery. But that wasn't enough. Then they chopped them up. Then after they did that, they burned them. And then what they had left was bones. They didn't like that. They put acid on the bones. So there'd never be a trace of the Romanovs anymore.
Wow.
That's how they came into power. And what about this guy Fidel Castro that they all think is a wonderful guy? He's of the same ilk.
As the
As was-
Romanovs or the Bolsheviks?
The Bolshevik, oh no, the Romanovs weren't darlings of but the Bolsheviks were unbelievable.
Right.
As were, the Madame Defarges and the French Revolution. These bloody revolutions are not fun.
Right.
Che Guevara. I mean, why they herald these people is beyond me. I mean, Stalin. What about Pol Pot? That's contemporaneous. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And we have the Washington Post and the New York Times that don't even talk about it. They don't talk about what's happening in Central Africa with the machetes, and they're cutting people up like crazy there. Oh no, can't talk about that.
Right.
That's off limits. Speaking of which, maybe they'll blame it on the Russians.
The Russians.
Now,
Russians
when
are,
did the Russians... Now, folks, do you think the Russians are so stupid that they'd leave their fingerprints or footprints on tapping into our systems?
Well, let me just say this about that whole idea that the Russians somehow hacked into, and they were the reason why Donald Trump won. I don't buy that for a second. Now, but I will agree with the premise that the Russians are always looking to tweak us any way they can, but just like we're always trying to tweak them, and we're tweaking the Chinese, and I mean, didn't we hack into Israel? I mean,
Paul,
we've been
Hillary Clinton-
stealing secrets from people. I mean, that's the
Of
nature.
course, Hillary Clinton intervened in Putin's election.
Yeah.
Directly intervened, and here she's calling foul?
And Obama intervened in the Israel election, trying to stop Bibi Netanyahu. Right? They do
got
it all
rid-
the time.
They got rid of Gaddafi.
Right? Yeah.
The hard way.
You're right. That wasn't even an election thing.
Right.
They just went in and shot him.
What about the Brotherhood, the Arab Spring in Egypt?
Right. They supported them.
Give me a break. My point to you is this: I don't think that you could find. There's no way that they could say they're speculating. See, the CIA speculates.
Right.
They don't have hard facts. They take a wild guess, right?
And then the New York Times and the Washington Post uses that speculation to take an unnamed source and speculate even further that as a result of this speculation that they've speculating about somebody else leads to this premise that Russia was trying to get Trump elected. By the way, I don't think the Russians wanted Trump any. I think they would have preferred Hillary Clinton to Trump.
Of course they would have, because they've been all, everything they've done has been under her watch as Secretary of State and Obama.
Right.
They grabbed the Crimean. They're destabilizing the Ukraine. They're ready to go into the Baltic nations. The shield went down. Remember the missiles that we had in Eastern Europe?
In Syria, what's going on in
Syria and Georgia.
Right.
All of that happened under Obama. With Trump, he's ready to tell the Chinese, hey, Trump, and who did he put in? He put in Flynn. He put in,
Mad Dog.
the Mad Dog.
Yeah.
I mean, he's putting people that aren't going to take any guff anyhow.
Right.
Not that they're going to go to war,
Right.
but they're.
So I equate this kind of whole scenario to the scenario when Ronald Reagan was sworn in. The day he was sworn in, the Iranians released the 44 hostages. It was like boom.
Of course.
I mean, it wasn't a day later, 2 days later. It was like they were waiting on the tarmac, and as soon as they knew that Carter was out, they let him go. Right? Is that?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, John Podesta, who, by the way, is a Soros crony,
Yep. Oh yeah, they're all part of that.
and he and his brother were doing big business with Russia, by
Right.
the way, that nobody wants to know. And on top of it, the Clintons, Hillary, Secretary of State, and Bill, they cut a deal in which 20% of our nuclear reserves, mines or whatever, went to Russia.
The uranium, right? Yeah.
Uranium went to Russia, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean,
But Donald Trump has, he's hiring people that have ties to Russia. I mean, isn't that the cat calling?
wait a minute, let me ask you something.
The pot calling the kettle black, I think.
On top of it, now here's the thing. We don't know what nations control resources that are needed. They're not necessarily democracies, right?
Right.
You have to deal with them, don't you?
Yep.
Okay. So, when you have someone there that knows how to deal with them, I mean, I would. And why? Do you have any respect for Condoleezza Rice?
I have the utmost respect for her.
Thank you very much.
She is a remarkable woman.
What about
She was the first woman Secretary of State.
not only woman, she was also African American.
Right.
She was a double header.
Right.
Okay. Now,
She was an accomplished pianist too.
and a golfer.
Is that right?
She's at the Augusta National.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. She wanted me. Now, the other guy that was at the Defense Department, Gates,
Yep.
those two who know a little bit about the world scene,
They were in those roles themselves, right?
both of them strongly recommend Rex
Tillerson, yeah.
right? Strongly recommend. Now, why would I listen to lightweights like
On CNN. Right.
or Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders? You know Bernie Sanders is fundamentally a socialist communist, right?
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. If it's coming out of ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNBC,
But it
CNN,
is.
in the Washington Post and the New York Times,
Yeah.
if that's where it's coming from, you can't really believe it because they are inherently biased. And we've talked about this 1,000 times, folks. And it's true to this day. And they're doubling down in the worst, in a way that it's just remarkable. Everything that they say and do is felonious. It's wrong. It's a lie.
Tell me
when
this.
it comes to the stuff, because they don't want the changing of the guard. The fact of the matter is,
They want the status quo.
Trump is going to upset the apple cart, and they want the status quo, like you said.
Very good, Paul.
And by the way, same with those two fraud senators, Lindsey Graham and
John McCain?
And John McCain.
They are frauds.
To me, they are. They're. I mean, you know what they don't like. What they hate the most about Donald Trump is that he is going to go in and wreck the military-industrial complex. He's going to really kind of redefine the way bidding goes and all that kind of stuff. And their buddies are, they're hawks, right? Their buddies are the military-industrial complex. They've been supporting them for years.
Say that again. They are neocons, right?
Neocons, yeah.
Okay. Which is, they're hawks, they're
Right.
interventionists. What folks don't understand about Donald Trump, and I wish that you'd appreciate this, is he is not an interventionist.
No.
He's not a hawk.
He hopes to have more bombs and missiles than we've ever had and never have to use them once.
Precisely.
Right.
Which makes great sense.
Right. And
they can't stand that.
By the way, the neocon thing, and this is something that, you know, I've always subscribed to going back as far as I can remember. They build up all this arsenal, right? And then they get the next generation stuff, and that old generation stuff gets sold to the Israels and the Syrias, and they kick the crap out of each other, you know, and it's the business. It's the business of killing people. I mean, there's a lot of truth to it.
Think about this, Paul. Iran is hustling a contract with Boeing worth $14 billion for Boeing to build a fleet of airplanes for them, jets. What do you think Iran's going to do with those jets? You think the jets are for humanitarian reasons? Or do you think they're going to use those jets to fly ammunition and arms to Yemen and to the Hezbollah? They're going to use those planes to do dastardly things. And you know what?
So it's a
Who provided them with the money to be able to cut a deal with Boeing to start with?
Obama and Clinton.
With his $150 billion that they gave to him, right? Now,
it was their money. They just released it, but yes.
oh yeah, sure. From what? From the Carter years?
Right, right.
So, in other words, Donald Trump turns around and he says, it's a terrible deal. I'm not dealing, and by the way, Boeing, you're charging too much money for those whatever they call them.
The F-35s
What-
and the Air Force One.
Yeah, and I want to take a look at that. And while you're at it, how come all of a sudden I notice that there's $125 billion that you've been spending kind of badly, right? And he wants to correct that because you can reallocate those savings or that overruns or whatever you want to call it.
You know what's interesting is, remember the thing, the sequester, right?
Yeah.
The sequester had a number of impacts on a lot of programs because it kind of capped how much the growth could go in them and so forth. And all the Republicans were complaining about the impact it was having on the defense budget, right? It's had that coupled with Obama doing all his things to decimate the defense budget and so forth has caused it to kind of shrink, right? Mm-hmm. Obama did all those things. He was the one that did the sequester. So the idea was it was going to reduce budget, right? It was going to save the country money. I'll tell you that if Trump eliminates the sequester, but also goes in and starts addressing the real issues with the budget, he will save money and eliminate the sequester at the same time.
Paul, if the American public thought about this, the folks he's putting on the cabinet are businessmen.
Right.
They know how to run things. They know how to do cost-effective things, which is driving everybody bananas.
Under budget and on time are going to be themes.
Exactly.
Along with buy American, hire American.
Would you, they're comping about Rick Perry, who was put on the Department of Energy.
By the way, that's a department that he forgot the name of it, but that was
Which
the
is
one.
how- yeah.
That was the one that he was planning on eliminating. One of them.
It is.
So maybe, by the way, maybe that's the
good
reason
thing.
he's been put on that, and his job will be to eliminate Department of Energy.
Here's the thing. Scientists were appointed by Obama twice in a row.
Scientists and doctors and
Scientists are not businessmen.
professors.
Scientists should be strictly scientists.
Yeah. Give me your input on the science.
Right.
And I'll make the decisions from there.
Because they know nothing about business and efficiencies. And one of the things that I find appalling, I hate that word, but I'll say it, is that we have so many folks who are comping or adding to the dialogue in areas they know nothing about. They may be expert at building automobiles, but they know nothing about politics. Or they may be Academy Award winners, they can act, but that's about it. And so when you have Leonardo DiCaprio flying around jets, talk about efficiency,
Well, look,
and talking about,
In fairness to all of these clowns that you're referring to, I mean, Donald Trump is a businessman. He built skyscrapers and so forth, and he did The Apprentice. So you can't just say because of what somebody did that they couldn't do something else. So we need to, I think it's only fair to take that position. That being said, I think Donald Trump, forget about what he said during the election. What he's doing now is putting his money where his mouth is, and he's doing those things that are necessary to, to kind of drill through the crap in the swamp and to find ways to drain it.
You have to go.
I do.
I know. I hate to have you go. Folks, it's one of those things. Paul, you have an appointment to go to, and I'll miss you, and I have to wing it for the next 15 minutes or so without you.
So just remember, January 19th,
On our way.
we're heading south to Washington, D.C.
Either by car or train, but no plane.
No plane.
How do you like that? That rhymes too.
Joe doesn't want to fly.
I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Joe.
Take care.
Always a pleasure.
Always. And always fascinating, I have to say something. I'd like to take a class with you because you're a very, very astute young man. Paul, be good.
That's BS, I think.
You mic'd out?
I'm mic'd out.
See, we improvise here pretty well. Get out of the camera, Paul. They have to see my pretty face. Now, there's a little bit of news I want to give you folks, and it's nice news because here at Lynn TV, sometime in March, we're going to possibly have a new studio up and running, and that's good news, and we'll be looking forward. We'll keep you updated on that. A couple of facts about Christmas that I find fascinating, and Dave, I don't know if you have them there, Christmas, Noel, and that little thing there with a nice little bouquet of bulbs and balsam. It's 3 little points to make. In A.D., also known as Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, in A.D. 350, Pope Julius I, Bishop of Rome, proclaimed December 25th the official celebration day for the birth of Christ. So, folks, the reason why you and I celebrate December 25th is because back in AD 350, Pope Julius I, Bishop of Rome, proclaimed it the official celebration day of the birth of Christ. You like that, huh? Not to be outdone by number 2. The traditional 3 colors of Christmas are green, red, and gold. Green symbolizes life and rebirth. Red symbolizes the blood of Christ, and gold represents light as well as wealth and royalty. That is the genesis of the 3 colors of Christmas and their meaning. And lastly, talk about mythology. Contrary to popular belief, suicide rates during the Christmas holidays are low. The highest rate of suicides actually takes place during the spring. And moving on, by the way, that we have our annual, or we're starting a new segment here, Dave. It's called the Geography Bee, the Frankly Speaking Geography Bee. And on this one here, it's the U.S. Geography Bee. So you folks out there, get a pen and a pencil and a little pad, and we're going to test you. First, I'm going to read you the questions. You figure them out. Should I or should I not give them the answers, Dave, or should I make them wait? Yeah, we're not going to give you the answers. You send them in, and we'll figure out how to give them some type of Christmas prize. We'll figure that one out. Anyways, number 1. Name the only Great Lake that is entirely within the borders of the United States. I repeat, name the only Great Lake that is entirely within the borders of the United States. That's question 1. Question 2 of the U.S. Geography Bee although frankly speaking, U.S. Geography B, is name that state that has the shortest coastline. That state that has the shortest coastline. Number 3, think about this. What is the largest state east of the Mississippi in land area? That state east of the Mississippi that's the largest in terms of land area. Number 4, what state borders only one other state? What state borders only one other state? And lastly, name the southernmost state. The southernmost state. So I'm going to repeat all 5 quickly, and Dave is going to tell you how to get, or tell me how you people can answer these questions so we can check them out and figure out a prize for you. Name the only Great Lake that is entirely within the borders of the United States. That's number 1. Number 2, that state that has the shortest coastline. Number 3, what is the largest state east of the Mississippi River in land area? Number 4, what state borders only one other state? And lastly, name the southernmost state. Dave, let me ask you, are we going to be able to put those 4 questions up on a site? So if people missed it, they can look at it, respond on Facebook, respond on Facebook to Frankly Speaking. We'll correct them. And if you get all 5 right, we'll think of something for you. We won't leave you hanging. Anyway, it's surprising to me how so many folks are trying to delegitimize Donald Trump's victory. Now, I'm not going to tell you I didn't support Donald Trump, because I did. And had Hillary won, I would have been very sad and upset, but I wouldn't have gone into denial. I wouldn't have become hysterical, and I would have accepted it, although with regret. What is happening now is unbelievable. They are trying to do everything they can to defeat or delegitimize his election. And that's sad, because this could rip the country apart. Give him a go. If he's not doing the right thing, guess what? We have the midterm elections. You can get rid of a Republican Congress if he does the right thing, and you can get rid of him in 4 years. And that's the way our democracy works. Now, we've had 8 years of an idea, of an ideology. And in my view, it didn't work out too well. So why not try this? Furthermore, I don't want to pigeonhole people, but Trump really is not, quote unquote, a Republican in traditional sense, nor is he a Democrat. He's a populist. He's a nationalist. He's an anti-globalist. Actually, he's for the little guy. Ironically, he's trying to get jobs, blue-collar jobs. He's trying to, as he says, help the forgotten man and woman. And that's a noble thing, actually. And if he can accomplish that, that's a really good thing. It's better than having the elite dictate to you and me what we should think, how we should work, this, that, and the rest of it. Dave tells me we have 5. Is that about right? So, what's happening in this city is tonight, and you should tune in, or actually you won't be able to because we're showing the day after. But the city council will be querying the mayor, and that is by charter, which is our constitution, that when they have questions about budgetary issues, they can call the mayor in and have her respond to questions in writing. They have to present those questions to her in writing ahead of time, and then she gets before the city council and answers them. At issue is this. We've been downgraded by Moody. There is a potential for a $7.5 million shortfall in the school department. The police department has $3 million worth of raises. The fire department union is now in arbitration, negotiating their contract. And that's not to say others might not come along, like the DPW thereafter. So, in real terms, we have some serious financial problems to be answered and to be rectified. It is improbable that if the council, and they could do this, they could vote to put on the ballot an override of 2.5. Their fear is that the public won't override. And if that's the case, what do? So, lacking a revenue stream or a shortfall, as I've tried to explain a number of times, the only thing they can do, the city can do, is to raise the value of the city so that you have a greater, for example, instead of being a home that was $200,000, now worth $250,000, then that $50,000 is extra revenue tax that comes into the city and helps offset whatever shortfalls we have. Paul mentioned during the time he was here that, in effect, 2018 is the critical time by which we need to balance these books and face the possibility of a financial disaster, so to speak. You know, I've been arguing for as long as I can remember that we need to create a whole new category in the city, a subdivision of the city that involves mixed housing, much like the plan that's been proposed for the Linway, the master plan. But it has to be actuated, and to date, that hasn't happened. We need light industry, we need retail, we need housing, we need commercial, we need all of these types of mixes, and we have actually the land to do it with some imagination. So you think about it. Anyway, at this point in time, it's time for me to go to the Logan Airport to pick up my daughter, who's flying in from New Orleans, and my bride, who's flying in from Florida, while I'm up here freezing. On that note, we will see you next week, same time, same station. Have a great week.